The tension was palpable from the very first second. As soon as the cameras rolled, you could feel it. Every word, every look, every pause dripping with drama. Jim Jones and Maino didn't hold anything back, and nobody in the room seemed ready for the storm they were about to unleash. Sources say the beef between these heavy hitters has been simmering for months, but nobody expected it to blow up this way on Vlad TV. The moment started off like a normal interview, but quickly escalated. Words were sharp. Accusations flew. Respect and egos were on the line. Every reaction from 50 Cent G-Unit was met with an even sharper comeback, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. Fans went wild as clips surfaced online. The internet couldn't stop talking. Questions started popping up everywhere. Who's telling the truth? Who's really in the wrong? And more importantly, how far will this beef go? It wasn't just about throwing shots anymore. It was about power, reputation, and who runs the game. By the end of the interview, the energy in the room had reached a fever pitch. Nothing was off limits, and everyone watching knew one thing for sure: this wasn't just another rap argument. This was a full-blown clash between legends, and the fallout could change everything in the hip-hop world. Stay tuned, because the next move could spark something nobody saw coming, and the streets are already buzzing. By the time the camera stopped rolling, everyone in the room could feel the tension linger like a storm that hadn't yet passed. Jim Jones and Maino weren't just speaking, they were making a statement. Every word was carefully calculated to hit, every gesture sharpened to show they weren't here to play games. And even though 50 Cent and G-Unit had their own legacy, this confrontation put the spotlight back on something far bigger than a single interview. The history behind this beef was deep-rooted. Fans who had followed the scene closely knew it wasn't just about a minor disagreement or social media post gone wrong. Rumors of disputes over collaborations, financial disagreements, and long-standing competition had been floating around the industry for months, maybe even years. But nobody expected it to erupt live, on camera, for the world to dissect. Vlad TV had unintentionally become the arena where years of tension would clash in a single explosive conversation. As the interview progressed, insiders noticed subtle changes in the room's energy. Every time 50 Cent made a calculated move, either in speech or expression, Jim Jones countered with precision, his voice sharp, his points undeniable. Maino backed him up with a confidence that made it clear they were aligned, a unified front against what they perceived as disrespect. Observers noted how this duo wasn't just airing grievances, they were rewriting the narrative, reclaiming their power, and forcing G-Unit to respond in real time. It wasn't only the words that caused shockwaves, it was the delivery. Jim Jones' tone carried authority, urgency, and an edge that cut through the usual polished media demeanor. Maino added intensity, emphasizing points that hit the core of ongoing disputes, points about respect, loyalty, and how the industry sometimes overlooks those who built their names from the ground up. Fans watching live felt like they were witnessing a rare moment, raw, unfiltered, and unscripted truth spilling over from years of behind-the-scenes tension. Meanwhile, reactions from the streets and online forums exploded within minutes. Clips of the confrontation were shared repeatedly, with hashtags trending across platforms. Every fan, blogger, and industry insider dissected the moments line by line, every pause, every look, every jab. Some argued that Jim Jones' words were too harsh, some sided with Maino's approach, while others scrutinized how 50 Cent and G-Unit handled themselves in real time. The narrative was splitting, reshaping, and fueling debates about respect and hierarchy in hip-hop. The dynamics were also complex on a psychological level. Both sides knew that interviews like this weren't just about immediate impact, they were about legacy. Jim Jones and Maino understood that calling out someone like 50 Cent publicly carried consequences. A single misstep could backfire. But by choosing a platform like Vlad TV, they ensured maximum visibility and audience engagement, a move that amplified every reaction. It was strategy mixed with raw emotion, a cocktail that made every word matter even more. Sources close to the artists revealed that prior to this explosive session, there had been subtle warnings, indirect communications, and back-channel exchanges attempting to resolve tensions quietly. But when those failed, The only stage left was public confrontation. For many in the industry, this wasn't surprising. Hip-hop has always had a tradition of settling scores publicly when private negotiations fail. What was shocking, however, was the intensity and the way Jim Jones and Maino executed their approach with precision. Analysts noted that this wasn't just another celebrity beef. This was a case study in power, legacy, and respect. Jim Jones' references to past incidents weren't random. They were carefully curated to expose perceived patterns in how 50 Cent G-Unit operated, raising questions about loyalty, recognition, and fairness in business dealings. Maino reinforced these points with concrete examples and personal experience, making it harder for anyone to dismiss the confrontation as mere dramatics. The online response further illustrated the cultural impact. Social media erupted with debates, memes, reaction videos, and polls. Fans were taking sides, but the bigger story was how the conversation went beyond entertainment. It sparked discussions on artist treatment, industry politics, and what it means to maintain credibility in a world where perception is almost as important as performance. Everyone wanted to know who was right, who would gain respect, who might lose face. Industry insiders speculated that this could be the beginning of a larger shift. If Jim Jones and Maino's approach set a precedent, other artists might feel emboldened to speak out in similar confrontations. The message was clear: staying silent about perceived disrespect is no longer the default. Speaking out, even against powerful figures like 50 Cent, carries risk, but it also carries potential reward in terms of control over one's narrative. Meanwhile, the tension between strategy and emotion became evident in real time. 50 Cent, known for his calculated approach, tried to navigate the confrontation carefully, responding selectively and maintaining his composure. But the pressure from Jim Jones and Maino created moments where even small reactions could be interpreted as concessions or weaknesses. Observers noted how the energy in the room was almost electric, a mix of respect, fear, and excitement colliding in a single space. By the end of the session, it was evident that this interview would not just fade away. Media outlets picked up clips, commentators analyzed every statement, and fans debated potential next moves. For Jim Jones and Maino, this was more than just airing grievances. It was a demonstration of influence, a calculated display of power, and a message to the industry that their voices and reputations mattered. And as the conversation circulated, speculation about future moves started. Would 50 Cent respond publicly? Would G-Unit release statements, tracks, or social media jabs? Would this escalate into music, diss tracks, or further interviews? The anticipation alone kept the story alive, showing that even after the cameras stopped rolling, the effects were felt everywhere. Fans dissected body language, tone, and subtle cues to infer what wasn't said. Analysts considered implications for artist-business relationships. Industry veterans pondered how this could shift power dynamics. And for many, it was a lesson in how respect, history, and timing intersect to create moments that are bigger than just words. They become cultural touchpoints. One thing is undeniable. This Vlad TV interview was more than an argument. It was a battle for narrative control, respect, and legacy. And as the story continues, the world watches, waiting to see who will strike next, who will hold their ground, and how this beef will ultimately reshape the perception of all parties involved. And as the echoes of that explosive interview began to ripple through the hip-hop world, the tension didn't fade, it intensified. Fans replayed every moment, analyzing facial expressions, hand gestures, and pauses as if decoding a secret message. Every word Jim Jones and Maino spoke carried layers of meaning, and every reaction from 50 Cent and G-Unit was scrutinized for hidden significance. What started as an interview had now transformed into a cultural event, a live demonstration of influence, power, and legacy colliding under the glare of cameras and social media. Industry insiders hinted that the seeds of this beef went deeper than anyone realized. Long before Vlad TV, there were whispers of tension, disputes over collaborations, disagreements about contracts, and moments where respect had allegedly been compromised. Jim Jones, known for his calculated demeanor, wasn't just venting, he was systematically laying out patterns, calling out behavior he and Maino felt had been disrespectful over time. Maino reinforced every claim with personal experience, grounding the confrontation in credibility rather than theatrics. But the genius of this moment wasn't just in the words, they were in the delivery. Jim Jones' tone shifted seamlessly between calm authority and pointed aggression, forcing 50 Cent and G-Unit to navigate a minefield of implication and accusation. Maino's interjections hit like precision strikes, emphasizing the historical context and ensuring that every jab landed visibly and audibly. Observers noted how this dynamic duo executed the perfect balance of forceful confrontation without losing composure, creating a tension that had everyone watching on edge. Social media exploded almost immediately. Clips circulated across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, accumulating millions of views within hours. Fans debated fiercely, picking sides based on every nuance, from a subtle nod to a raised eyebrow. Some argued that Jim Jones' points were undeniable, while others defended 50 Cent's calm responses, insisting he maintained his composure under pressure. Forums lit up with speculation. Which side would escalate next? Would diss tracks drop? Could this turn into a full-blown rap war reminiscent of the Golden Era beefs? Meanwhile, those closest to the artists revealed how much planning went into this moment. Sources claimed that weeks of private discussions, indirect warnings, and even attempts at mediation had been attempted behind the scenes, but nothing worked. The beef had reached a tipping point, and Vlad TV became the stage where years of unresolved tension could no longer be contained. Every word spoken in that room sent shockwaves through the industry. Analysts began discussing the implications beyond personal rivalry, considering what this beef could mean for artist relationships, collaborations, and industry hierarchies. Jim Jones and Maino weren't just addressing 50 Cent, they were sending a message to everyone watching. Respect isn't optional, and history doesn't forget. Fans weren't the only ones paying attention. Other artists, industry executives, and media personalities began weighing in, dissecting motives, body language, and underlying meaning. Reaction videos proliferated, creating a chain reaction that amplified the original confrontation exponentially. Even casual observers were drawn in, captivated by the drama, tension, and intensity that seemed almost cinematic. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear that the beef wasn't just personal, it was strategic. Jim Jones and Maino understood that public perception matters as much as private agreements. By choosing a high-visibility platform, they forced not only 50 Cent and G-Unit, but the entire hip-hop community to witness and interpret their stance. It was a calculated display of power: speak out, dominate the narrative, and reclaim control of respect and legacy. For 50 Cent and G-Unit, the stakes were equally high. Known for their strategic approach and ability to dominate media narratives, they now faced a situation where reaction time, tone, and content were under microscopic scrutiny. Even a minor misstep could be interpreted as weakness or concession, making the room feel like a battlefield where every pause and expression carried meaning. As hours turned into days, discussions moved beyond individual opinions to broader analysis. Could this confrontation influence future collaborations? Would it deter or encourage other artists to speak out? Analysts suggested that this moment could be pivotal, setting a precedent for how beefs and disputes are addressed in modern hip-hop culture. The conversation was no longer just about Jim Jones, Maino, 50 Cent, or G-Unit. It was about the future of respect, negotiation, and public confrontation in the industry. Meanwhile, fans noticed subtle details in the Vlad TV footage that hinted at even deeper layers. A glance exchanged, a pause before a response, or a phrase repeated with emphasis, all became talking points. Discussions on forums and social media exploded with speculation. Was there more history behind the words? Were there personal grudges, financial disputes, or betrayals that hadn't been publicly revealed? Each new theory added fuel to the fire, keeping the story alive and unpredictable. What made this confrontation unique wasn't just the history or the personalities, it was the timing. In an era dominated by social media, viral clips, and instant reactions, a single interview can spiral into a movement. The beef between Jim Jones, Maino, 50 Cent, and G-Unit exemplified this perfectly. What could have been a private dispute had become a global conversation about respect, power, and hip-hop legacy. Strategically, both sides understood the importance of narrative control. Jim Jones and Maino wanted the world to see them as unapologetic defenders of their legacy, while 50 Cent and G-Unit needed to navigate the situation carefully to maintain authority and credibility. Every word, gesture, and silence became a tool, shaping how audiences interpreted the confrontation. The story had escalated far beyond a single interview. The internet was buzzing, artists were watching, and the industry was abuzz with speculation. Jim Jones and Maino had succeeded in making their voices heard, but the fallout was only beginning. Every observer, from hardcore fans to industry veterans, understood that this confrontation could shape hip-hop narratives for months or even years to come. The real question now wasn't just who won the confrontation, it was who would dictate the next chapter. And in hip-hop, as history shows, the next chapter often hits harder, louder, and with consequences nobody can ignore. The real question now wasn't just who won the confrontation, it was who would dictate the next chapter. And in hip-hop, as history shows, the next chapter often hits harder, louder, and with consequences nobody. As soon as clips of the Vlad TV interview spread across social media, the tension didn't dissipate, it multiplied. Fans dissected every nuance, replaying exchanges over and over, debating whether 50 Cent and G-Unit had been caught off guard, or whether Jim Jones and Maino had truly dominated the room. Comments poured in by the thousands. Twitter threads analyzed line by line, Instagram stories highlighted specific phrases, and TikTok creators remixed the most dramatic moments. The conversation had become a cultural event, not just an interview. But behind the screen, the story ran deeper. Sources close to both camps revealed that the confrontation on Vlad TV was just the tip of the iceberg. Private messages, long-standing grievances, and subtle industry maneuvers had been building for months, even years. Every jab, every pointed remark, every tone shift had layers, some obvious, some hidden, designed to assert dominance, reclaim respect, and send a warning not just to the opposing camp, but to anyone watching. Insiders explained that Jim Jones' strategy was intentional. He wanted to frame the narrative in a way that highlighted perceived disrespect while emphasizing loyalty, history, and personal credibility. Maino supported every point, reinforcing the duo's argument with hard-hitting examples and personal experience. It wasn't random. It was a calculated display meant to command attention, spark debate, and ensure the story would linger far beyond the interview itself. Meanwhile, 50 Cent and G-Unit were forced into a reactive position. Known for their ability to control media narratives, they suddenly found themselves responding to a barrage of public opinion. Every subtle facial expression, every pause in speech, and every measured response was analyzed in real time. For the first time in a long while, the balance of power seemed to teeter, leaving fans and insiders questioning who truly held the upper hand. The fallout wasn't limited to social media. Industry professionals, journalists, and fellow artists began weighing in. Opinions split dramatically. Some praised Jim Jones and Maino for standing their ground, arguing that calling out disrespect openly was a bold and necessary move. Others commended 50 Cent and G-Unit for remaining composed under pressure, highlighting the importance of measured responses in the age of viral clips. The discussion transcended personalities. It became a debate about respect, hierarchy, and legacy in modern hip-hop. Adding fuel to the fire, rumors started surfacing about potential musical responses. Diss tracks, shout-outs, and subtle lyrical jabs were all hinted at by insiders. The idea that this confrontation could extend into the music itself sent fans into speculation overdrive. Would 50 Cent respond in kind? Would Jim Jones and Maino drop tracks addressing the incident directly? Could this escalate into one of the most high-profile beefs of the decade? Every answer seemed plausible, keeping anticipation alive. Street-level reactions mirrored online fervor. From local radio stations to podcasts, the beef became the topic of the week. Conversations weren't limited to hip-hop communities. Mainstream media picked up the story, analyzing its implications for artist relationships, brand credibility, and industry culture. It became evident that this confrontation wasn't just personal. It had become a case study in power, influence, and narrative control. Yet, even amid the drama, subtle moves and responses began to emerge. 50 Cent's camp hinted at upcoming projects and possible clarifications, while Jim Jones and Maino continued to drop subtle reminders of their claims, both on social media and in interviews. Each post, each comment, and each public appearance became a chess move in a high-stakes game. Fans tracked these maneuvers closely, interpreting them as signals of escalation, alliance, or strategy. Analysts argued that moments like this highlight a fundamental shift in hip-hop culture. The days when artists quietly tolerated disrespect or managed disputes. Behind closed doors are fading. Now, public confrontation, strategic exposure, and narrative control are essential tools in maintaining relevance, credibility, and legacy. Jim Jones and Maino's bold approach on Vlad TV demonstrated how public airing of grievances can create momentum, attract attention, and redefine power dynamics, all while putting the pressure squarely on the opposing camp. As the days passed, speculation grew about the potential long-term impact. Would this confrontation affect collaborations, endorsements, or business relationships? Could it reshape how artists and labels approach disputes? Would other figures in the industry take note, adjusting their strategies for dealing with disrespect? The answers were uncertain, but one thing was clear: the Vlad TV session had already left a lasting mark on the culture. Fans also noticed subtle post-interview signals. Every social media post, interview snippet, and appearance was dissected for meaning. Was a smile genuine or sarcastic? Was a silence a concession or a strategic pause? These nuances added layers of intrigue, turning what could have been a fleeting story into an ongoing conversation about power, respect, and credibility. Ultimately, the confrontation served as a reminder that in hip-hop, respect isn't optional. It's a currency, and the way you protect it can define your legacy. Jim Jones and Maino's decision to confront 50 Cent and G-Unit publicly was as much about protecting their own reputation as it was about challenging perceived slights. For 50 Cent and G-Unit, the challenge became balancing composure with engagement, maintaining credibility while responding to a public narrative that wasn't entirely in their control. As the smoke settled and the immediate storm of reactions slowed, the conversation persisted. Fans continued debating, insiders analyzed potential next moves, and industry professionals discussed the broader implications. The confrontation had transitioned from a single interview to a cultural touchstone, a story referenced whenever respect, power, or public accountability came into question in the hip-hop world. In the end, what started as a tense, heated Vlad TV interview became far more than that. It became a lesson in strategy, narrative control, and the importance of standing your ground. Jim Jones and Maino had captured the attention of fans, artists, and industry veterans alike, proving that boldness, timing, and clarity of message can shape public perception in profound ways. 50 Cent and G-Unit, meanwhile, faced the challenge of responding thoughtfully without escalating the situation unnecessarily, knowing that in today's viral landscape, every word is scrutinized, every reaction amplified. The confrontation may have ended in the studio, but its ripple effects would continue to influence conversations, music, and culture long after. This wasn't just a clash, it was a lesson in power, legacy, and the stakes of hip-hop respect. And while the immediate drama had played out, everyone watching knew the story wasn't truly over. The next move, whether through music, social